Introducing Dr. Joye Hardiman, the Executive Director of our Tacoma campus, who will do the introduction. Joye has held the position of Executive Director since 1990. This will be her final year in that role as she goes on sabbatical and goes back to teaching and doing marvelous things. But the wonderful thing about Joye is, even as an administrator, she's always maintained that hunger and has continued to teach. She has made incredible gains and growth in our Tacoma campus. Her teaching philosophy focuses on using ancient wisdom to explore and envision solutions to contemporary problems. She's an international executive board member of the Association for the Study of Classical African Civilizations. She was a summer Fulbright scholar and has done extensive field work on African presence in global history. She's a brilliant conceptualist and an extraordinarily inspirational teacher. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Hardiman.
Thank you. It is my great honor and privilege to introduce Dr. Maya Angelou to you tonight. She is a woman who speaks 6 languages, is the author of 7 autobiographies, 12 books of poetry, 6 plays, 2 screenplays, 3 spoken word albums, and multiple TV and film appearances. She is a woman whose legendary wisdom spans time and continents. Dr. Maya Angelou is a woman who embodies the essence of the classical African, ancient Egyptian creative mandate as voiced by Queen Hatshepsut, who wrote on the walls of her temple in the Valley of the Kings, "I take as my sacred mission to devote my life to restoring that which is in ruin and make it more beautiful than before." Dr. Angelou is a restorer and a transformer. She is a woman whose practice is based in the ancestral connection to the African concept of Heka, which is the evocative power of language to accomplish what one wills, as taught in the great universities of Timbuktu and Shanghai and Jena. Dr. Angelou uses words as nets to catch and restore and renew our spirit and soul. She is a woman who stands on the shoulders and walks in the tradition of such great African storytellers and writers as Aesop, Dumas, Pushkin, Langston Hughes, and Zora Neale Hurston. She tells the story of common folks in a way that allows us to see their and our humanity. She is a person who reminds us that sunrises always follow sunsets, that human beings are verbs and not nouns, and that we're all miracles in the process of becoming. So join me in welcoming author, poet, historian, educator, actress, playwright, director, civil rights activist, producer. I love you back.
When it looked like the sun wasn't gonna shine anymore, God put a rainbow in the clouds. She does not know her beauty. She thinks her brown body has no glory. If she could dance naked under palm trees and see her image in the river, she would know. But there are no palm trees on the street, and dishwater gives back no images. Still, when it looked like the sun wasn't gonna shine anymore, once riding in old Baltimore, my head was filled, my heart was filled with glee. I saw a Baltimorean keep looking straight at me. Now, I was 8 and very small, and she was no whit bigger, and so I smiled. But she stuck out her tongue and called me nigger. She said, "You little black no good nigger." She said, "Dirty little rascal nigger." I saw the whole of Baltimore from May until December. And of all the things that happened there, that's all that I remember. Still, when it looked like the sun wasn't that shine anymore, Miss Rosie, when I see you, you black, brown, beige, red, yellow, pink, white, sack of a woman. When I see you, Miss Rosie, sitting, waiting for your mind like last week's groceries. I say, when I see you, Miss Rosie, you in the old man's shoes with the big toes cut out. When I see you, who used to be the prettiest gal in Georgia, used to be called Georgia Rose. When I see you, Miss Rosie, because of your dedication, your devotion, your intelligence, your courage, and your love, I stand up. Miss Rosie, I stand straight up, and I know when it looked like the sun wasn't that shine anymore, Miss Rosie, you became my rainbow in the clouds. Thank you. Hey! Evergreen, I come to you with a light and lighted heart. My days these days are not light, but I was coming to Evergreen. And so knowing I was coming here, I knew I was coming to a rainbow in the clouds. Some of you don't know this, but the Dr. Mimms, who was mentioned by your president, Dr. Purce, Dr. Mimms is a sister friend of mine, and she invited me here all those years ago. She had been a professor at the university, and she realized that there was an Evergreen Olympia, but there was not a place for poor black men and women over 18, and poor Native American, and poor white, and poor Latino men and women to visit, to go to school. She began to harass the state. And this black woman, began Evergreen in her kitchen. The Tacoma branch was begun in her kitchen. And when there so many people came, blacks and whites, Spanish-speaking and Native American, she broke the wall between the kitchen and the dining room. I know that Maxine Mimms is a rainbow in the clouds. And because I know that, I know that Evergreen is one. So having you to look forward to made it possible for me in the last few weeks to live with a world where a beautiful sister friend of mine has left. And of course, when anybody leaves, all those you've lost leave again. And so, but I kept thinking, I'm going to Evergreen. Yes, this is who we are. Each one of us is. Young man, young woman, older man, or as my doctor trying to get on my good side said of me, upper middle age. I was so pleased, I said, I'll do anything you say. So, this is who we really are. So I thought, since I do believe in preaching to the choir. I know you are already converted. But I do believe, so I decided to talk to you about rainbows in the clouds for the next 3 or 4 hours. I hope you brought everything you need. Now wait. I have to sit down from time to time. I always, for many years, I have had a very bad right knee. I mean, it was known as the bad knee. And people who didn't even know me would come up, but Dr. Angelou, how's the bad knee? But my left knee was very good. About 6 months ago, my left knee began to feel sympathetic to the right knee. And so both of them are horrid. So my hosts have put this stool up here for me. and I will use it. I'm sorry for my darlings just in front of here. In fact, if the microphone could be moved, if I had a stand-up mic, I could just use that. But never mind. Anyway, I'm here and I came here to say something and I'm not going to leave until I say it. So there we are. I will not. So from time to time I will stand up and then I'll perch and I'll stand up. But to talk about rainbows in the clouds, each one of us has had rainbows in our clouds. Whether the ancestors came from Eastern Europe, trying to escape the pogroms, the little and large murders, arriving at Ellis Island, having their names changed to something utterly unpronounceable. Or if the ancestors came from Scandinavia, from Italy, Hungary, South America, Mexico, trying to find a place that would hold all the people, all the faces. Or if the ancestors came from New and Old Delhi, if they came from Asia in the 19th century, to build this country, to build the railroads, unable legally to bring their mates for decades. Or indeed, if they came from Africa unwillingly, lying spoon fashion, that means back to belly, in the filthy hatches of slave ships, and in their own and in each other's excrement, and urine, and menstrual flow. They have paid for each of us already. You see? We have always had rainbows in our clouds. Whether they had a chance of ever knowing what our names would be, or what our faces would look like, or what mad personalities we would foist upon the world. They have paid for us. And so it's a wonderful thing to honor those who have paid for you. If you know their names, you must honor them by saying their names aloud. If you don't know their names, thanks for what you've done for me, whoever you were. You must do it. People live in direct relation to the heroes and sheroes they have, always and in all ways. So if a song of the Beatles helped you to see the light, if a song of B.B. King or Aretha Franklin helped you to understand something, if Tim McGraw or Faith Hill, no, true, isn't it? No, I'm telling you. I'm an aficionado of country music. And so I do the country music television about once a year. And the last time I was asked to come and introduce Miss Martina McBride, and they asked would I walk on the red carpet. Well, walking is difficult with these ridiculous, stupid knees. And I said, oh, those people are waiting for Toby Keith and all those, some of the wild ones are big and rich and so on. And why should I walk on? I said, no, I will do it. I walked on the red carpet, and those people who were like that on either side said, Dr. Angelou, we love you. And when I got to the theater, to the Opryland, Ryman, and went out to introduce Martina McBride, I don't know, 15,000 or 20,000 people stood to greet me. Now, what that tells me is, you don't have to be the rainbow in the clouds to people who look just like you. Hello. You may have enough intelligence and courage to look through complexion and see community. Hello. So being a rainbow in the clouds is the most noble thing we can be. You see? To people who may not call God the same name we call God, if they call God at all. But to be a rainbow in the clouds. So I thought I'd speak to you about some of the rainbows I know. But this is just some. When I was 3 and my brother 5, my mother and father, we lived in Southern California. My mother and father agreed to disagree. They separated and they even divorced. Now I know there are people who say, what a pity and a shame, the result of a divorced family. Oh. And it's true, sometimes. But then sometimes we ought to get a grip. Some people ought to be divorced. True business. My mother and father did my nation a favor by getting divorced. Liberated us all, thank the Lord. Their next moves were not so swift. They put me and Bailey on a train in Los Angeles with tags around on our arms. No adult supervision. I was 3, Bailey was 5. The tag said these children are to be delivered to Mrs. Annie Henderson in Stamps, Arkansas. Stamps, Arkansas is a village about the size, a little bit larger than this stage, right? Not as large as the gym. Because of the kind offices of the dining car waiters and the Pullman car porters, We actually arrived in that village. I can't believe it. It's over 70 years ago. And they took us off trains and put us on others. And we arrived in this teeny little village with my grandma, my father's mother, and her other child, my Uncle Willie. Now, they owned the only black-owned store in the town. And they needed me and Bailey to work in the store. I mean, my Uncle Willie was crippled. His whole right side was paralyzed. His left side was huge because in that side of the family, we grow to be very tall and broad and all. My grandmother was old by the time we got there. I mean, she must have been 50. So, they needed I think my grandmother taught me to read that afternoon. But my Uncle Willie taught me my times tables. And he would grab me with this strong, big left side and stand me in front of a pot-bellied stove with fire in it. And he'd say, now, sister, with a slur attendant to his paralysis, he'd say, sister, now do your 8s. Sister, do your 9s. Sister, do your 10s. I learned my multiplication tables exquisitely. I was so sure if I didn't, somehow he would manage to open that pot-bellied stove, throw me in it, and of course I found out he was so tender-hearted, he wouldn't allow a spider or a fly to be killed in the store. Bailey and I had to catch the offender and take it outside where he thought we would kill it. Maybe we did, I didn't know. But he would take me. So Uncle Willie taught me to do my times tables. I'm sorry to say my Uncle Willie died some years ago. So I went down to Stamps to see about affairs. I stopped in Little Rock, and a woman came out to the airport, a great American, a treasure, Miss Daisy Bates. Now, if you don't know her, get on your Google, go Google and find her, Daisy Bates. She's a woman, a black woman, who led the 9 children into the Central High School in Little Rock, causing the governor to come out and show the pure fool that he was. Governor Orville Faubus said, over my dead body, the governor of the state, can you say, he didn't want black children to go in because he disagreed with God's choice for the colors of the people's skin. So he stood up, which caused President Ike Eisenhower to send down the federal troops to look after those 9 kids. It's an interesting story. Get on your Google. Anyway, she met me at the airport. I didn't have to tell you she was black, so here's what she said. Girl, I know you're down here on your way to Stamps, but there's somebody dying to meet you, and I want to bring him to your hotel, okay? So I said, okay. She brought about 30 people to my hotel. But she brought this black man who was all of that. So I said, how do you do? He said, I don't want to shake your hand, I want to hug you. I said, I sure appreciate it. He gave me a wonderful hug. He said, now you're down here in Arkansas because Willie has died. My jaw fell to my chest. What? This man in a 3-piece suit way up north in Little Rock had even heard of my Uncle Willie? Uncle Willie was so ashamed of being crippled that he wouldn't even go to Louisville, Arkansas, which was 5 miles from Stamps and the county seat. This man up in Little Rock, up north, in a 3-piece suit, he said, you know, because of your Uncle Willie, I'm who I am today. He said, you know, in the 30s, I was the only child of a blind mother. Your Uncle Willie gave me a job in your store and paid me 10 cents a week and made me love to learn. And he taught me my times table. I asked him, how did he do it? He said, he used to grab me right here. He said, because of him, I'm who I am today. You want to know who that is? I said, yes, sir. He said, I'm mayor of Little Rock, Arkansas. One of the first blacks in the South. I looked at Willie. I thought, my Lord, would he ever even know how far the light of his rainbow shone? He said, now, because of him and what I learned and who I've become, I have a police escort for you to take you from Little Rock, convoy you from Little Rock to Stamps, Arkansas. He said, now, I want you to stop in Louisville, because there's a good old boy, he'll look after your property. And I called him. I went downstairs the next morning, and I was thrown back, I don't know how many years, to being 8, 6, when the boys would ride in Stamps. That's how they would be told, be careful, the boys are going to ride tonight. My brother and I would take the potatoes and onions out of a bin and help my Uncle Willie to get down into that bin. And we'd cover him with potatoes and onions. It was dangerous for any black man to be extant on a night when the boys would ride. We would cover him with potatoes and onions and then look out the window. Outside, the boys, they were men on horseback, and they'd stomp around in front of the store. They didn't wear sheets. They didn't have to. They were the law. So to whom could anybody protest? The next morning in Little Rock, Arkansas, I went downstairs, and there were 8 white men, just looking just like the boys. They had huge guns which set up. I couldn't believe it. I started to cry and to laugh. I went to each one, I shook his hand and gave him a big kiss. I said, I want to thank you in the name of my Uncle Willie. Dead, still being the rainbow in my cloud. You see? This story goes on because I stopped in Louisville to see this lawyer. And the mayor had said, he's a good old boy. He'll look after your property. I expected an older black man with dignity and many years to speak to me, older than our president, but looking much like an authority and control. I mean, this president. Just in case you all thought I didn't know I was in Washington State. There's a young white man ran out of the office. He said, Dr. Angelou, I'm just delighted to see you. He said, the mayor called me from Little Rock. He's the strongest, most powerful black man I ever met. He's a noble man. Dr. Angelou, because of him, I'm who I am today. I said, oh, let me sit down then. He said, I'm the only child of a deaf mother. Mr. Bussey, the mayor, caught hold of me when I was 11 years old and made me understand how important it was for me to get an education, for me and my mother. And Dr. Angelou, I'm not just a lawyer, I'm in the state legislature. I look back at Willie. You see? Poor, black, male, during the lynching years, and crippled more so. I have no idea the width, the breadth, the height that where his rainbow has shown. In fact, last month in Washington, D.C., there was a groundbreaking for the memorial for Martin Luther King, and I was one of the speakers. I spoke, and when I finished, a young white man with his wife came plunging through with children. He said, Dr. Angelou, wait a minute, I want to speak to you. So I said, yes, fine. He said, my family, we are all tied together. So I said, ah. He said, many years ago, I think my grandfather was able to be of help to you. So I said, oh. He said, yes, he was then in Louisville, Arkansas. He was a lawyer and in the state legislature. I asked him, in your family name? He said, Pryor, which is the name of the young man. I've told this story before, but I never mentioned his name because I didn't want to violate his privacy. But the young man came. He said, and Dr. Angelou, Mr. Bussey, who was the mayor, was very kind to my grandfather. And I want you to know that I am a congressman. Really? See? So never underestimate who you are or what you are. I wrote a song for Miss Roberta Flack. I write for some singers from time to time. But this song, she sings it better than I do. But I wrote it. And I wrote it for all of us. Willie was a man without fame. Hardly anybody knew his name. Crippled and limping and always walking lame. He said, I keep on moving, and moving just the same. Solitude was the climate in his head. Emptiness was the partner in his bed. Pain echoed in the steps of his tread. He said, I keep on following where the others lay. I will cry and I will die, but my spirit is the soul of every spring. Look for me, and you will see that I'm present in the songs that children sing. People called him uncle, boy, and hey. Said, you can't live through this another day. And then he waited to hear what he would say. He said, I'll be living in the games that children play. You may enter my sleep. You may people my dreams and threaten my early morning's ease. But I keep coming. I'm following. I'm laughing. I'm crying. I'm certain as a summer breeze. Look for me. Look out for me. My spirit is the surge of open seas, call for me, call upon me. I'm the rustle in the autumn leaves. When the sun rises, I am the time. When the children live and learn and laugh and love, I am the rhyme. You can just call me Crippled Willie. You see, that's who we are. That's just who we are, each one of us. We've already had the rainbows in our clouds, or we wouldn't be here. And that's just who we are. We are rainbows. We have the possibility of shining on a path that was very crooked and helping to make it a little straighter for people who are yet to come. On a path that was really terribly bumpy, dangerous, and smoothing out the way for someone who is yet to come. I'm flooded with things I want to tell you.
We're not going anywhere.
I'm not either. I thank you. I thank you, baby. Years ago, I used to write. I had a flat in London, and I used to write there. So I would go there for 3 or 4 months at a time, and I would work from midnight till about 7, and then I would take a shower and go out and try to let some of the ideas, fresh ideas, come into my brain. One morning, I was walking down King's Road. It was about 7:30, and a little chilly. And I was walking down King's Road, and there were 2 young people sitting with their backs against the store. I simply recorded them. They had that little dog, that little brown dog. We all know that dog. He was here in Seattle. He was in San Francisco, down in the village in New York. This little dog, they had 2 guitars, backpacks, and I simply saw them. Before I could reach them, a man came out of the shop, which means he'd gone around to come in through the back, and he turned and he spat on these 2 young people. I don't mean he spat, I mean he cleared his throat and spat on these 2 young people. Now, they were white, he was white. He couldn't tell if those children were English or Irish or Welsh. They could have been Scandinavian or Hungarian or Italian. I knew they were mine. I couldn't stand it. Now, I'm not much of a cursor. That's not one of my arts. There's an art to it, but I went to him and I just took his lapels and I started talking. And I didn't know all that I was saying. I said, "You knock-kneed, slew-footed, chili-eating, I don't know what you're doing." I put ridges on my lips, you know. The man turned and ran inside. The children, they started gathering all their belongings. They never spoke a word to me, so I never found out where they were from. But I did go home, and again, I wrote a song. When you see them on the freeway hitching rides, with their dogs and their guitars by their side, you need to ask, what's on the line and the dying and the killing and the thrilling all about? Take time out. When you see him with a band around his head, and an army trump, break up, that makes his bed, you need to ask, what's all the beating and the cheating and the bleeding and the needing all about? Take time out. Take a minute, feel some sorrow for the folks who thought tomorrow was a place that they could call up on the phone. Take a month and show some kindness for the folks who thought that blindness was an illness that affected eyes alone. When you see her walking barefoot in the rain, and you know she's tripping on a one-way train, you need to ask, what's all the yelling and the selling, the beating and the cheating all about? Take time out. Or you can sell your soul for money, then run off to the country for your cookouts and your parties on the lawns. While our children seek sedation in Eastern meditation or visions that go shooting up their arms. When you know that youth is dying on the run, and my daughter trades dope stories with your son, we need to ask, what's all the warring and the jarring, the killing and the thrilling, the beating and the cheating, the bleeding and the needing all about? We better take time out. It was my intention to read to you a whole lot of poetry. And I've been talking poetry, but to read it to you because it's so important. And I want you at Evergreen, at Olympia campus, and at the Tacoma campus, I want you to please reinstitute the habit of memorizing poetry. Please. Memorize some poetry. I would like to think that you would memorize some Angelou. and some Paul Laurence Dunbar. Yes, I'm gonna say some Dunbar to you. And some Shakespeare. I want you to have it. You'll need it. I love Edgar Allan Poe myself. I love Poe so much, I call him Eep. To myself, in a familiar way. I have to tell you this, all those years later when I returned to my mother in San Francisco, I was 13, and I had spent 6 years as a volunteer mute. And I returned to my mother, and my mother was a strange bird. She thought all children should go to see at least 2 plays a year, and there should be Bach in the house and blues. She liked all the old blues singers. I mean, she had them. Arthur Big Boy Crudup, and really old blues, and Bach. It was very nice. I mean, you didn't know what you'd wake up to. The great chords in the universe are, babe, please don't go. At one time, she had tickets to the Curran Theater, and 4 great famous American movie stars were going to come and read poetry. So she had tickets, and we went, Bailey and I. Tyrone Power, Gregory Peck, Ann Baxter, and Agnes Moorehead. And the 2 women came out in dark black dresses with pearls. And the 2 men in dark suits and tuxedos. And they had podia, 4 podia. And they each read. And then I saw in the program that Gregory Peck was going to do The Raven. Now, I had never heard it read or anything, but I knew it, I memorized it. And because of the internal rhyme, I had memorized it in the 40s, much like the hip-hop people speak today. So I had understood it to mean, once upon a midnight dreary, as I pondered weak and weary, over men that told and carried volume, a forgotten lore, had I nodded just like napping, suddenly I heard a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. 'Tis some visitor I muttered, tapping at my chamber door. Gregory Peck came out and he took that Shakespearean stance, you know, that Shakespearean actors do, and said, once upon a midnight dreary, as I pondered, weak and weary. I said, that's not the way that up in St. Louis, I had been, when I was 7, I was taken there from my grandmother in Arkansas. I was taken up there to my mother's family. And her family were extremely erudite and sophisticated and educated. And they talk like that. They even called bologna. Well, I mean, my brother and I were trying to get to be city kids. I mean, tried to learn to talk like that. We ate sliced bread and liverwurst and things like that. But my mother's boyfriend raped me. I told the name of the rapist to my brother, who told it to the family. The man was put in jail for 1 day and released, 1 day and night. And about 3 days later, the police came to my mother's house, into her parlor floor, where Bailey and I were playing a game. We called it Monopoly, because we never heard it pronounced. When the police came in, and there were 2 huge policemen, white, and they had blue serge uniforms. In the 30s, blue serge was about 1/4 of an inch thick, if not thicker. And they had huge brass buttons like that, shining like new money. They looked like giants to me. And they told my mother's mother that the man had been found dead, and it seemed he had been kicked to death. I thought my voice killed the man. So for everybody's sake, it was better if I didn't speak. So I stopped. Then, traumatized, finished. My mother's people did their best to woo me away from my mutism. They sang, they did everything, but I wouldn't. So after about 3 months, they sent me and Bailey back to Stamps, Arkansas, this little village, to Mama. And I'd love you to see Mama. I may, in fact, even finish tonight with Mama. Mama was like everybody's grandma. I mean, she could have been Korean, she could have been Iranian, she could have been Senegalese, she could have been Irish. Here's Mama, Japanese. Mama, right? When I returned to Mama, my Mama would braid my hair the way old black ladies still braid girls' hair. The Mama sits down on the chair and pulls her dress way down between her legs like that. And the girl sits on a pillow, and both of them face out. The girl tries to get back close to Mama. And my hair was huge and very curly. So Mama had her work cut out for her. She'd bend her hand like that and put it behind my neck so she wouldn't break my neck by accident. And she started to brush all this hair. She said, Sister, Mama don't care what these people say about you must be an idiot or you must be a moron because you can't talk. Sister, Mama don't care. Mama know when you and the good Lord get ready. Sister, you're going to be a teacher. I used to sit there and think, this poor ignorant woman. Doesn't she know I will never speak? I thank my hosts, both the president and Sister Joye, Dr. Joye Hardiman. I thank you, and I thank you all. I thank them for being fairly brief in the intro. But sometimes when I'm being introduced, I feel I'm at my own wake. You know, people say, and then in 1940 she did so and so. The truth is, I now have over 60 doctorates. Wait a minute. And I teach in Spanish and French all over the world, and theology and philosophy and so forth. The truth is, I'm able to be here because of the rainbows in my clouds. My grandmother was a rainbow in my cloud. My Uncle Willie was a rainbow in my clouds. I mean, it was cloudy. Yeah, my brother has been a rainbow in my clouds, all now dead, still lighting up the way for me. When I'm most lonely, I feel most threatened, I think of them. I bring them right into the theater with me. They're here in this gym. Everyone who ever loved me, who ever said, morning, who knew me or didn't know me, and said, how are you? Hi. You have no idea what that can mean to somebody. You can see a person, she may have just hung up the phone from having a nurse say, we would like you to come back in. We weren't sure. We want to read that again. Each time you say, morning, you have no idea. When somebody has just heard from an employer, look, we're going to downsize, Mr. Jones. I'm sorry to say, we'd like you to come in and get your belongings. And for a moment, you've said, hello, hi. You have no idea what you've done. Just for a second, the person is lifted up. She said, did she go to my church? Just for a brief moment, you lifted somebody up who may not look like you. There's a statement, folks, and especially here at the Olympia campus and at the Tacoma campus. I really want you to look into this. The statement is, homo sum, humani nihil ame alienum puto. I am a human being. Nothing human can be alien to me. Now, when you look in the encyclopedia for that name, Terence, with one R, you will see in italics, Terentius Afer. He was an African. He was sold to a slave, sold to a Roman senator. The senator freed him. He became the most popular playwright in Rome. 5 of his plays, and that statement, have come down to us here, at this university, in this library. 5 of his plays and that one statement have come down to us from 154 BC. This man, not born white, not born free, or with any chance of ever achieving citizenship in the Rome of his day, said, I am a human being. Nothing human can be alien to me. Now, if you can say that, of course that means that if a human being commits the most heinous crime, you can never again say, oh, I couldn't do that. Nope. You have to say, if a human being did it, I have within myself the components that are in that human being. Mine, I hope, are arranged a bit differently. And if not, I intend to use my energies constructively as opposed to destructively. But if you can do that with the negative, look at what you can do with the positive. It means if a human being dreams a great dream, dares to develop courage, the most important of all the virtues, because without courage you can't practice any other virtue consistently. You can be anything erratically, but to be that thing time and time again, no. Now, if you can do that, then if a human being dares to love someone and has the unmitigated gall to accept love in return, it means you can do it. You see? You are liberated. I do the convocation at Duke University every year for the last 15 years. And I told them if they didn't ask me, anytime they don't ask me, I'll be the tall black woman outside picketing. I insisted on it. But I talked to 2,000 young men and women about to go into the university. Come in, they have already been registered, and this is the convocation. And I start by saying, by and by, I'm gonna lay down this heavy load. As I start with that. And I congratulate them for being in a university, in a space filled with information, a place geared, built, founded to share information, a place planned, built to liberate each one of us from our ignorance. So here, you can drop it. At any moment, you can drop it. Just look at it. You know, I don't like them because my father never dropped it. Well, I don't trust because he's gay. You can't do it. And that's why you're here. Some people think, oh, I'm here, and then I'm going to meet that guy who's about 2 inches taller than I am, and he's going to be a lawyer, and he's going to be a doctor. She's here, I'm going to meet that girl, she's a couple of inches shorter than I'm, cute. We're going to get that piece of paper, and then we're going to get some good jobs, and then we're going to buy a 3-bedroom house with 2-car garage. We'll have 3.5 kids. That's not really why you're here. You're here so you can become liberated. So, I'd like you to look up Terence. I am a human being. Nothing human can be alien to me. I know I'm talking a long time, but I just have to tell you a couple of things. At one point, I was in Yugoslavia, and I had been in France, and I knew I was going to Yugoslavia, so I reached out and found somebody to help me with Serbo-Croat, because I wanted to have something to get into a country. I didn't want to go there and pretend I couldn't speak, or pretend they ought to know my language. So I studied Serbo-Croat with a woman who taught me from French. Now, her French wasn't all that smoking. So the Lord knows what my Serbo-Croat sounded like. But anyway, I learned enough. I was able to mumble around. And then a young couple invited me to a party, some Serbo-Croats. And I said yes. The American State Department, which was underwriting largely the opera I was singing in and dancing in, had told us no Americans can go beyond 4 square blocks of the theater, 4 square blocks of the hotel. Well, yes, but I didn't think I would ever go back to Yugoslavia. And I was from Stamps, Arkansas in San Francisco. I mean, and I'm black and 6 foot tall. I mean, wait a minute, no, I'm going to go out here and see what's what. So I said, yes, I would come to the party. The people came, this young couple, in a pickup truck. There were about 20 people in the back. They pulled me up, we all stood up, and there was one bottle of Sugar-Bits, and it passed among us. And they drove us out from Belgrade, out into the country, and my knees got a little water in them. I thought, oh Lord, have I gone too far this time? We went all the way out, and we came up to a house that looked like a Charles Adams house, with little gargoyles and little cupids and things, ooh. So I walked in, and there was this music on, and it was, mean to me, why must you be mean to me? It was Billie Holiday, my lands. So I went in, I had a wonderful time, I ate with them, and we drank, and then a little old lady, just when we were about ready to go, she may have been about 4'10", came out of a door. She had on a robe, homemade, and slippers, homemade. They looked just like the slippers my grandmother made for herself, and a robe of felt. And she spoke to everybody, and all these people spoke to her. Then she looked over in the corner and saw me and screamed. My host came running, oh, please forgive her. She's ignorant, please forgive her. She's never, I said, listen, if I had lived to be 90 with my people and never saw a white person, and one showed up, I would be lucky not to faint. What are you talking about? So I just sat there, and she was really frightened. And I spoke to her in Serbo-Croat. I said, good evening, Mother. I'm happy to be in your home. Hello, Mother. You have a beautiful home. And your children are very good, Mother. thank you very much for allowing me to be in your home. My cerebral cord was absolutely the primitive, but I continued. And I said, yes, Mother, the food is very good, very good. And she kept inching. I said, won't you sit beside me, Mother? She sat beside me. It didn't come off. She pulled my hair, it didn't come out. She shouted, bring food. So her great-granddaughter said, no, she's out. I said, no, it's okay. So I took a bite, and she watched me chew it. Then she said, bring drink. Now, this is why you must learn to read. I had read that the proper way to drink Schlivovitz was there would be a little bowl of apricot or peach or apple confiture, preserve. You're supposed, and a tiny spoon, supposed to take a bite of that, boop, down with the Schlivovitz, then another bite. That's not what we did in the truck. But that's what I did. And she saw me and she said, good girl. Oh, my hosts were so glad, so thankful to me. So we were getting ready to go when the door opened again and a man came out older than she and with osteoporosis, so he was bent over. And when he didn't look over in the corner to where I was, I knew she was playing a joke on him. So he went out, speaking to everybody. And then he looked over and saw me and screamed. She said, don't be stupid. That's a good girl. He found his way. I said, Father, I said the same things to him I'd said to his wife. And then he said, bring food. I said, bring drink too. He touched me. It didn't come off. He asked me, listen, who was your grandfather? My grandfather, I told him. He asked, who was your great-grandfather? Who was his father? So I told him, my great-grandfather had been a slave in Tipper, Mississippi. He asked me, what was his name? I told him, Thomas Bailey Johnson. He says, Thomas Bailey Johnson. He said, I knew him. He said he lived on the other side of the mountain. He was a farmer. He was a good farmer, but his father was better than he. Now, what would make this man, who had barely even gone into Belgrade, Zagreb, he was a farmer, what would make him see me and say, this is a regular person? He'd never seen a black person before in his life. Why? Because I had a little of his language. And because I respected myself and respected him. And I didn't feel offended because he had never seen me before. I accept that I am a human being and nothing human can be alien to me. And because of that, he accepted me. I wanted to read you so many poems, but okay, I'm going to read you this one. I'll tell you one, though, whether or not. This one about, just to make you laugh, because I love people who laugh. I never trust people who don't laugh, who say, I'm serious. And act as if they put airplane glue on the back of their hand and stuck them to their forehead. Boring as hell. But I don't know if you're serious. I think if you're serious, you came here to make a difference. So you laugh as much as possible, because everything will give you reason to bemoan your outcast state. I mean, the newspaper, don't pick up the telephone. You pick up the telephone and say, oh, hi, good morning. And you listen and say, oh, God. Yes, well, or pick up your, turn it on, everything. So when you can, you should laugh. Nor do I trust people who don't care for themselves and say, I love you. I think, no, you may want something, but you don't love me. No. There's an African saying, which is, be careful when a naked person offers you a shirt. Some years ago, I went into a health food diner. I was a smoker. I'm not proud of that, but I was a smoker. I'm proud to say and happy to say I'm over 20 years free of nicotine. Yes. And I would say this for you. I pray for you. Any of you who has smoked or is smoking now, I hope you'll stop. And I hope you live long enough to say, I'm 20 years free of nicotine. I mean, it is a killer. And a part of my problem with my knees is that my lungs are so bad that I can't even have an operation which will take me deep enough for my knees to be repaired. You see? Please think about it. And as soon as possible, stop. And as long as you can remain stopped, do so. Okay, but I was smoking then. So here's this, the health food diner. I went into this health food diner over 20 years ago, 22 or 23 years ago. And I wanted some rice and vegetables, as one does sometimes. You know, I wasn't a vegetarian, but I wanted, and so I went in and I ordered it, and the woman walked away, and I reached into my purse and got out a package of unopened cigarettes. And this woman was back in seconds. She said, "How dare you? That is so nasty. That is so filthy, filthy, filthy. Oh, you dirty, dirty." I said, "Wait, miss, please, get a hold of yourself." She looked like she was winding herself up to slap me or something. I said, "I'm not the one. You really, I promise you don't want that." She said, "It is such a nasty thing." So I said, "Listen, if you didn't want people to smoke, why don't you put some signs up?" She said, "We thought anyone who'd come into a health food." So I said, "Maybe everyone else." But mind you, that was over 20 years ago, and very few people really knew it. I said, "And I've worked so hard to pry myself loose from my illiteracy. I like to try all the time to see if I can read. No smoke." Nothing I said would make her crack her face. She wouldn't laugh or love no money. She said, "You've endangered everybody in this." Mind you, I hadn't even pulled that little piece of cellophane off. And the people, I said, "These people just started coming here, didn't they?" She said, "No, these are regulars. They've been coming for years. This is the way the people look." I said, "I wouldn't tell you. I'm not looking any better than that, boy." Now, I have to tell you that the American Meat Packers Association didn't pay me a penny. But they did publish 200,000 copies of this poem. Mine. "No sprouted wheat and soya shoots and Brussels in a cake, carrot straw and spinach raw. Today I need a steak. Not thick brown rice and rice pilau and mushrooms creamed on toast, turnips mashed and parsnips hashed. I'm dreaming of a roast." Health food folks around the world are thinned by anxious zeal. They look for help in seafood kelp. I count on breaded veal. No smoking signs, raw mustard greens, zucchini by the ton, uncooked kale, and bodies frail are sure to make me run to loins of pork and chicken thighs and standing ribs so prime. Pork chops brown and fresh ground round, I crave them all the time. Irish stews and boiled corned beef and hot dogs by the scores, or any place that saves a space for a smoking carnivore. I want you to invite me again. Thank you. I do. I appreciate that. All those years ago, after I'd written the inaugural poem for Mr. Clinton, the United Nations personnel, people, wrote to me and telephoned to me and asked if I would write a poem for all of us, for the world. And would I come to San Francisco and deliver the poem? Well, God bless you. Well, I was overwhelmed because in 1945, when United Nations was being founded in San Francisco, I was 16 years old. I was pregnant, unmarried, and about to graduate high school. 6 foot tall and black, even then. And I had read that simultaneous translators were being paid the unheard of amount, $150 a week, to work at United Nations. There had been statements in the San Francisco Chronicle, the Examiner, and the Call Bulletin. And I would go down and watch the people going into the building, United Nations building. I'd watch Mrs. Eleanor Roosevelt with her friend, the black educator, Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune. I'd watch the people from India, France, all those exotic places. And I would think, if I wasn't black and 6 foot tall and 16 and pregnant and unmarried and uneducated, I could go into that building. Folks, imagine when I was asked, me, Maya Angelou, 50 years later, to go into that building and deliver a poem to the world, to the heads of state of the world. Look at it. See me now. I told you about that little village in Arkansas. I told you about being raped and being a mute. See now, how could I have made it without rainbows in my clouds? You see? Some white ones, some black ones, some Asians, Spanish speaking. See, some fat ones, some thin ones, pretty and plain. See, that's who you are, and that's who I am, and that's what we can do to each other, and for ourselves. This is really, in truth, who we are. We shine so far beyond what we think are our limits. You see? So here is this poem. I'm going to give it to Dr. Hargrove, Dr. Purce, and ask that you put it on your website. And I'll ask Dr. Mimms to have it put on the website. And it's available to you. If you think of me, please think of this poem. We, this people, on a small and lonely planet, traveling through casual space, past aloof stars, across the way of indifferent suns, to a destination where all signs tell us it is possible and imperative that we learn a brave and startling truth. And when we come to it, to the day of peacemaking, when we release our fingers from fists of hostility, when the curtain falls on the minstrel show of hate and faces sooted with scorn are scrubbed clean, when battlefields and coliseum no longer rake our particular sons and daughters up from the bruised and bloody grass to lay them in identical plots in foreign soil, when the rapacious storming of the churches, the screaming racket in the temples have ceased, when we come to it, when we let the rifles fall from our shoulders and our children can dress their dolls in flags of truce, when landmines of death have been removed and our aged can walk into their evenings of peace, when religious ritual is not perfumed by the incense of burning flesh and childhood dreams are not kicked awake by nightmares of sexual abuse. When we come to it, then we will confess that not the pyramids with their stones set in mysterious perfection, nor the gardens of Babylon hanging as eternal beauty in our collective memory, not the Grand Canyon kindled into delicious color by western sunsets, nor the Danube flowing its blue soul into Europe, not the sacred peak of Mount Fuji stretching to the rising sun, neither Father Amazon nor Mother Mississippi, who without favor nurture all creatures on their shores and in their depths. Those are not the only wonders of the world. When we come to it, we, this people, on this minuscule globe, who reach daily for the blade, the bomb, the dagger, yet who petition in the dark for tokens of peace. We, this people, on this mote of matter, in whose mouths abide cankerous words which threaten our very existence, yet out of those same mouths can come songs of such exquisite sweetness that the heart falters in its labor, and the body is quieted into awe. We, this people, on this small and drifting planet, whose hands can strike with such abandon that in a twinkling life is sapped from the living, yet those same hands can touch with such healing, irresistible tenderness that the haughty neck is happy to bow and the proud back is glad to bend. Out of such chaos, of such contradiction, we find we are neither devils nor divines. When we come to it, we, this people, created on this earth of this earth, have the power to fashion for this earth a climate where every man and every woman can live freely without sanctimonious piety, without crippling fear. When we come to it, we must confess that we are the possible. We are the true wonder of this world. That is when it looked like the sun wasn't gonna shine anymore, when we say, yes, I will be a rainbow in the clouds. I thank you.